What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I want to take a look at a Joe Louis opponent by the name of two-ton Tony Calento. Now, Tony Calento's name was Dominic Anthony Calento. He was born March 12, 1960 in Orange, New Jersey. He died July 22nd, 1979. He stood 5 foot 9 inches and weighed between 183 and a half to 247 pounds. He was managed by Joe Jacobs and Harry Mendel. Tony Calento reminded me of a fighter by the name of Tank Albert. Now, Tank Albert was an MMA fighter, very strong, two-fisted puncher. He fought Joe Louis for the heavyweight championship of the world on June 28, 1939. Now, he fought fighters such as Lou Nova, Nathan Mann, Al Latour, Roy Laser, Harry Thomas, and Otis Thomas. Those are the fighters that Joe Louis fought as well. But in addition to those opponents, he also fought Harry Thomas, Otis Thomas, Harold Mays, and Bobby Brown. Now, the African-American fighters he fought at that time was Bobby Brown, Neil Clipsey, December 20th, 1929, Al Gaynor, June 19th, 1936, and Joe Louis himself, June 28th, 1939. Now, I would like to get into his career a little bit more deeper because eventually I want to study the fight between Tony Calento and Joe Louis, but I want to do it right here on the Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Now, as you can see here, Tony Calento, born March 12, 1910, Orange, New Jersey. He was an Italian-American, weighed 200 pounds, stood 5 foot 9 inches, and was managed by Elmer Flynn, Pop Kenny, Johnny Scalvorn, Phil Lewis, Max Waxman, Pete Dobb, Joe Jacobs, and Harry Mendel. A lot of managers. 1929 is when he began his professional career. Now, you fight fighters such as Babe Farmer, Jack Stein, Nick Fidel. That would be in Newark, New Jersey. And so far, you see all knockouts. He would lose on a foul in 3 rounds to James J. Lawless. That would be in Newark, New Jersey. That was Newark. Newark produced a lot of fighters in New Jersey. Jack Smith in Newark as well. He would defeat him in 6 rounds. February 22nd, George Hoffman, New York. He would have an 8-round draw. Neil Clipsey, African-American fighter, very good fighter. I think I showed his profile or at least his photo on, it might have been an Allentown Joe Gans video. So you can check that out. In Boston, he would be knocked out by Neil Clipsey. Like I said, he was an outstanding fighter. He would be knocked out in 8 rounds. But then we fight fighters such as Jack Shaw, George Nerone. Both fighters, he would defeat him in 10 rounds. Moving on to July 26, Harold Mays, Waterbury, Connecticut. He would receive a 10-round draw. Al Fryman, 10-round victory for him. Cuban Bobby Brown, Newark. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. That was a very good victory. That would be July 26, 1929. 1930, he would face fighters. He would have 2 losses so far. One would be February 21st against Al Feynman, and the other one would be Bud Gorman. April 22nd. They would both be in Newark, New Jersey in 1930. And to finish off that year in 1929, he would fight fighters such as Bill Matthews, June 26 in Newark, New Jersey. He would knock him out in 1 round. As you can see here, he would have all knockouts for the remainder of the year 1929. 1931, he would have a few losses at this point in time of his career. January 1st, Phil Mercurio, New York City. He would have a 2nd-round knockout. Tim Kirby, February. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. Paul Cavalier, fascinating fighter. He was a trainer of mine at Lenny Shore Boxing's gym. He had a brother by the name of Art Cavalier. He was a dynamite fighter in those days. He was a heavyweight. Started as light heavyweight, but he would spar a lot of rounds, as I was told, with Gene Tunney. And he would fight Paul Cavalier May 15th in New York City, and he would lose to Paul Cavalier in 10 rounds. Paul Cavalier had a master jab. He taught me how to use that on a heavy bag. He would face Jack Dorval in Detroit, Michigan, and he would lose to him in 10 rounds. That fight took place May 23rd, 1931. He would face K.O. Krishner, Detroit, Michigan. He would knock him out in 8 rounds. That fight took place on June 10th, 1931. 1932, Nady Brown, another Joe Louis opponent. February 8, 1932, Pittsburgh. He would lose to him in 10 rounds. Ernie Scaff. Ernie Scaff was an opponent of many fighters. Primo Carnera, Max Baer, just to name a few. June 7th, Newark, he would lose to him in 10 rounds. Unfortunately, he would lose his life in the ring after he would face Primo Carnera, laid up in the hospital for 3 weeks, and they pronounced his death. He had a cyst in the brain with a fight previous to that with Max Baer. February 20th, Howell Mays, 1933, good fighter, Newark, New Jersey, defeated him in 10 rounds. Obie Walker, outstanding African-American fighter. April 17th, 1933, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, he would lose to Obie Walker in 10 rounds. Unknown Winston, another good African-American fighter. August 28th, 1933, Newark, he would lose to him in 10 rounds. Larry One Punch Johnson. February 5th, another good African-American fighter, Newark, he would knock him out in 7 rounds. Balain Bozo, Newark, he would win on a disqualification in the very first round. April 2nd. March 5th, Owen Flynn, Newark, he would knock him out in 2 rounds. Now he would face Nady Brown, another Joe Louis opponent, October 17th, 1932, in Newark, New Jersey. He would knock him out in 1 round. 1933, Obie Walker, lose to him in 10 rounds. Okay, we went there. Let's go 1934. 1935, Larry Johnson, Elizabeth, knock him out in 5 rounds. Willie McGee, New York City, he would defeat him in 6 rounds. 1936, Al Delaney, Brooklyn, he would lose to him in 6 rounds. He would face Eddie Blunt, April 6th, Newark, New Jersey. He would defeat him in 10 rounds. Al Delaney, Newark, 8-round draw. He'd be stopped by Al Gaynor, another good African-American fighter. I did a promo on him. Look up Al Gaynor, Scrapbook Boxing, and you will study Al Gaynor's career. June 19th, New York City, he would be knocked out by Al Gaynor in the 4th round. Izzy Singer, good fighter, fought him twice in Newark. September 14th, October 12th. He would defeat him in 10 rounds, and he would knock him out in 8 rounds. Very good victory. Roy Laser. Roy Laser would be a Joe Louis opponent. November 9th, knock him out in 6 rounds. Arturo Godoy, April 28th, New York City, he would lose to him in 10 rounds. July 27th, Al Latour, Nutley, New Jersey, knock him out in 8 rounds. Lorenzo Pack and Leroy Hayes. Leroy Hayes is a good African-American fighter, November 18th, and he would stop him in 3 rounds. Fascinating win. And as you can see, he would face fighters such as Nady Brown again in Detroit, February 3rd, 1939. He would knock him out in 4 rounds. Abe Feldman, Miami, Florida, February 23rd, knock him out in 3 rounds. And then he would face Joe Louis eventually, June 28th, 1939. And he would be knocked out by Joe Louis in the 4th round for the World Heavyweight Championship of the World. And I want to go through that fight right now. Before that, I want to show a few opponents that we talked about. Here you have Lou Nova, September 15th, 1939. Would knock him out in 14 rounds, 1940. July 2nd, Max Baer, New Jersey. He would be knocked out by Max Baer in 8 rounds. Silent Martin, New York City. June 7th, he would knock him out in 10 rounds. And you can see here, he just had 1 loss. Actually, 2 losses here for the remainder of his career. He fought Jeff Smith, Jersey City, no decision in 12 rounds. Jeff Smith was a very good middleweight in New Jersey. Eddie McCarty, very good fighter in Indianapolis. He would knock him out in 5 rounds. That was impressive there. Michael Dowd would be middleweight champion of the world. December 16th, St. Paul, no decision in 10 rounds. 1941, Buddy Baer, Washington, D.C. would be knocked out by Buddy Baer in the 7th round. It would be April 8th, 1941. That would be the only fight he had in that year, 41. 1943, he turned to wrestling, and that would be about it for Tony Galento. 1944, he retired. Total bouts, 114. Knockout, 59. Winner on a decision, 22. He would lose on a decision 18 times. So let's look at a few opponents. I'm going to show you Roy Laser, Obie Walker, I don't know, maybe I'll have fun and find Baleen Bozo. Let's look at these fighters. Now, Tony Galento would face Neil Lipsy. This is Neil Lipsy. I showed you him this before, but this is a very good fighter. I just brought him up to show you one of the opponents of Tony Galento, Neil Lipsy. Good fighter. Here you have Baleen Bozo. There was another Tony Galento opponent. Baleen Bozo. Here you have heavyweight Roy Laser. He was a Jewish heavyweight. Tony Galento opponent. And here you have Eddie Blunt. Eddie Blunt was a Tony Galento opponent. I showed you Eddie Blunt once before, but I just want to get him into the profile of two-ton Tony Galento as an opponent. And here you have heavyweight Obi Walker. Very good fighter. Fantastic fighter was Obi Walker. I just want to show you him as an opponent to two-ton Tony Galento. And here you have one more shot of Obi Walker. Fascinating fighter. I'll be doing a profile on Obi Walker. Tony Galento opponent. Now we're going to look at this fight, Joe Louis and Tony Galento, through the eyes of the Joe Louis Tony Galento scrapbook. This entire book, 280 pages, is just the fight between Joe Louis and Tony Galento. As you can see here, America Speaks shows Joe Louis 20-1 favorite over Tony Galento. Very, very high odds. And as you can see here in New York, June 27th, the news that Joe Louis is going to fight Tony Galento in Yankee Stadium Wednesday night. Now, on a question of who will win, the public is on Joe Louis' side by 20-1, not far from what actually betting odds have been. This is unbelievable here, 20-1. And here you see Tony Galento. I want to apologize for my battery dying. I had to plug in this charger here. So Tony Galento is preparing for his 1939 heavyweight championship fight opportunity with Joe Louis. And Tony Galento was labeled the Bum of the Month because at this time Joe Louis was doing a famous Bum of the Month club, where he would go into a different city every month and fight who was supposed to be the best fighter of that particular city. And so when he got into New Jersey, Tony Galento was supposed to be one of those opponents. Now you have here Joe Louis and Tony Galento. The fighting record of both men. Well, here you have Tony Galento. We already went through his fighting record. And you have Joe Louis. I went through his fighting record several times. But this was the articles in the newspapers at that particular time. Like I always tell you, my dad and I always cut these out and we paste them into books. And it was a good thing we did because a lot of these papers would deteriorate after a while if they're not taken care of. So we took out what was important of the paper for us and we made scrapbooks out of them. We've been doing this for over 35 years. And I have 961 scrapbooks. I never thought the collection would get that large. Now here you have the Brown Bomber bent a quick knockout triumph and bout at Yankee Stadium. Governors will attend. Many other notable reserves ringside place receipts near $400,000 predicted. $400,000. How the fighters compare? Now here's the tail of the tape. You have Joe Louis, who was 25 years of age at the time of the fight. Tony Galento was 4 years older at 29. Joe Louis was 200 pounds. Tony Galento was 230 pounds. Joe Louis stood 6'1" 3/4" in height. Tony Galento was 5'9" 1/2" in height. Joe Louis had a 76-inch reach, and Tony Galento had a 72-inch reach, 4 inches shorter than Joe Louis. So that fight would take place at Yankee Stadium. Joe Louis won the World Heavyweight Championship from James J. Braddock on June 22nd, 1937 in Chicago as a prize. And I'm just kind of fishing around here just to give you a perspective of that particular fight. The gate may hit $500,000. You just have photo ops here, Joe Louis and Tony Galento. Like I said, Tony Galento was actually a serious opponent. I mean, he was a fat kid, and you wouldn't take him seriously, but he was a fighter. Like I said, he reminds me of Tank Abbott, MMA fighter. Always came in out of shape, but he would punch his way to a knockout. You got Tony Galento and his wife, basically the same size, and his newborn son. And here you have the fight doctor checking out both fighters. Here it looks like one man is taking the fight seriously and training, and the other one is just taking a nap. Again, these are all photo ops. And here you have Tony Galento and Joe Louis on the scales. Like I said, I have articles and articles of this particular fight. And I have probably about 30 books of Joe Louis and all of his fights, similar to these. Now this here was a surprise to many when Joe Louis was actually caught with a punch by Tony Galento. He went down, and little did Tony Galento know that was a mistake on his part, because all hell would break loose when Joe Louis got up. Joe's knockout of Tony Galento in the 4th round battle. Tony floors Joe Louis at that particular time. And it was just one of them things. But it was a good fight up until the point where Tony Galento got knocked out. Arthur Donovan stepped in and said enough was enough. Crowd got their money's worth. And it's time to throw in the towel here. Once again, here's Arthur Donovan, the referee. Tony Galento looking down at Joe Louis. As Joe Louis gets dropped. Surprise Louis on the canvas after a hard left from Tony Galento. Shout out to Rough House Boxing. He always likes these stats here in the newspapers. Here you have New York, June 28th. Unofficial figures on the Joe Louis-Tony Galento Heavyweight Championship fight tonight follows. Attendance, 34,852. That's the amount of ticket sales. Gross receipts would be $283,303.68. Federal tax, 10 cents per. So you had 10%, of the federal tax of that gate. 28,333 with 37 cents. State tax, 5%. $14,165.19. Fascinating. Joe Louis' share was 40%, $96,323.12. Galento's share, 17.5%, $42,141.37. Fight rounds by follow. This is a round by round coverage of the fight. Basically just give you an idea of what was going on. If, in case you couldn't see the fight at Yankee Stadium, you could read about it in the newspaper the next day, and they had a round by round coverage. And they need to do that today. It would be a little more helpful. But what's crazy is they don't really have newspapers around today. So here you have Louis and Galento. Now this battery may die again, so please apologize in advance. Louis never weighs more than 212 pounds. He weighed 198 3/4 pounds for Max Schmeling last summer, 200 1/4 pounds for John Henry Lewis last winter, 200 3/4 pounds for Tony Galento on June 28th. And here you have Arthur Donovan coming to the aid of Tony Galento. Joe Louis watches on. Tony Galento was hit with a devastating left hook. And then he hit him with a straight right hand. Unbelievable. That was an unbelievable left hook by Joe Louis to Tony Colento. So this is Tony Colento, Joe Louis. Thanks for hanging in there with me. As you can see, my battery is dying. Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs Theories. All great fights will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Salute to Tony Colento. Salute to Joe Louis. Salute to my subscribers. Peace.